Yeah, it's on.
It's on?
Oh yeah, we got time. You just take your time.
Yeah, but what you gonna do? Start it later?
It's recording right now.
Or yeah?
You wanna tell us your name and
Well, I guess you know my name, but Frank Jennings, the great Frank. uh, Years back, Donnie been wanting to record this whole story, and I just kept putting him off. And every year he'd remind me about, Daddy, don't you want to record the? And I just figured, well, I just kept putting off. Let's put it that way. And now Blaine bumped into me and saying, well, you got a camera and he likes to take pictures, so it's a heck of a one to pick on. But anyway, today, here
today
we are.
today we're going
He
for it.
wanted to know when the war started. Well, the war with Japan started in 1941. December 7th of 1941, that's when they picked on Pearl Harbor. But later we had news for them. It took a while to whip them, but the job was done.
And when the war started, how old
The
were you?
war with Germany started around 1939. They picked on Poland first, I think, and then each country. Germany was so strong that they just walked into these other countries and took them with no fight. Whether it was, I don't know, Holland, Poland, Denmark, you name it, they took them. And so they were so powerful, his plan was to take over the world. Well, England kept fighting them in France, but then they finally was losing. So later in 1944 is when the invasion started on June the 6th of 1944 was when they landed at
Omaha.
no, well, anyway, that's when the invasion was. Uh, June the 6th. So anyway, we getting back to 1941. I was about 15 years old. We was living on a farm. We raised cotton, corn, beans. In those days, corn was planted one stalk of corn and one stalk of beans. Or 2, 3 of corn and 2, 3 of beans. But anyway, it was all one corn, one bean, one corn, one bean. It was planted so where the beans, so said, would kind of fertilize the corn. And anyway, that's how it was planted. We had about 6 horses and mules to do the farming. We raised cotton, corn, sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, different crops. That we had a big garden, had all kind of stuff in the garden, and raised chickens, had eggs. There were very few things that farmers had to buy. We had hog lard to cook with, had eggs, vegetables, you name it, we had it. So there wasn't many things we had to buy. Sugar and rice. Of course, my half-brother Kavanaugh was raising rice, so now and then we'd get rice, a sack of rice from him. Anyway, that was how things went.
A lot of bartering. Back then, you could barter for sweet potatoes for rice, or
Well, in those days, while you're talking about that, when things were real tight, and I mean they were tight, there were some days I remember we ate sweet potatoes. We had plenty of sweet potatoes. We ate sweet potatoes, fried sweet potatoes for breakfast. We had maybe boiled sweet potatoes for dinner, and baked sweet potatoes for supper. There was not much else to eat, and things were real tight. So that's kind of how it went. And like I say, I was about 15 years old when the war did start, and I remember from that day, December 7th, Roosevelt made a speech that night, and he warned the United States that everybody, men, women, and children, would have to put their shoulders together to do the job that had to be done. So from then on, all factories, whether they made Ford cars or Chevrolet trucks or whatever, from then on they closed their factory down making that, and they went to making Jeeps and trucks and tanks, you name it, they made it. And many people down this way worked at, like New Orleans, that was a busy place. Mama Ruby was a welder, Aunt Helen, Robert, Wilbur, they were all welders at the shipyard in New Orleans, at the Delta shipyard. Ethel and Evelyn both worked at a place where they made artillery shells. Before the war, they made hot water heaters, Reams hot water heaters. So anyway, it just shows that things changed. From then on, people had to start living a different life and get with it. Those that were welders or whatever, they all working at the shipyard, they worked 8 hours, but it was nothing to put in another 8 hours if they wanted to, because the job had to be done. Just about every family had someone in service. After a little while, they drafted many fellas, and by the way, if I repeat myself, I know some of you might be hard of hearing, or maybe you forgetful. So if I repeat myself, you know why. But you know, it's very seldom I repeat myself. You know that. Yes, we raised chickens and hogs, all that. We didn't have to buy, but meat was rationed a little bit later. Anyway, what we did, let me back up just a little bit. On the farm, what we had to do, our old buggy wasn't in shape to ride in, so we'd go to town in the wagon. And that's how our business was done, to go get groceries for a week. Then we had 2 tenants living on the place. They were working they were working on half. My daddy would furnish the seed and team and whatever it took to make the crop, and they did the work, so they got half and he got half. But we'd go to town in a wagon. That's how we traveled, until finally I got a car. This car cost me, I think, $300. Me and my daddy went to town and found this little 1941 Chevrolet, a one-seat deal. And Lord, I thought I had the world by the tail.
That was before you went into service.
Yeah, that was. I was 17 about then when I got the car. I was working at the stockyard. By the way, I was playing smart though. I was kind of sort of smart like Obama is. I was was making $2.75. I'd work day and night, 24 hours, for $2.75, and I'd hire a colored fella to do my work on the farm, but he was a working somebody. He'd do more than I would have did if I would have been on the job. Farming.
Yeah.
So I'd hire him for the day that I was missing. I'd give him $1 a day, and I made $2.75, so we both come out good.
Huh.
Things were rationed in those days. It wasn't long after the president made a speech that everybody had to cut down on whatever, because all the factories did was make stuff for the military. Everything was, just about everything was rationed. Meat, sugar, coffee, gas, tires, tubes, you name it. Many things were rationed because everything went to the military. I bought a tube. I didn't have a tube. I had a blowout, I guess, or something or other. Tube gave out. I put in for a tube with the ration board, and they sent me a number 3. I could get a number 3 tube. Well, I went to see in town to get a number 3 tube, and this tube, this fella, he had a bunch of them, but they all looked about the same. Halfway dry rot. Had about 10 patches on it already, and that's what I had to settle for. But the speed limit was 35 miles an hour. In other words, because of the war, you couldn't go fast to ruin your tires or whatever. You had to drive slow to save everything. I mean,
Save on gas and.
Yeah, save on gas. I was allowed to get 3 gallons a week. Gas was 25 cents a gallon. 3 gallons was 75 cents.
Wow.
But I wasn't making a barrel of money, so the 75 cents, if I could rake that up, well, I was good. But anyway, I need to back up just a little bit. When I bought the car, Mama said, "Oh boy, now we'll be able to go to church." I looked at her and thought, well, man, with all I have to do, I'm a busy fellow. On Sunday, we need to, that's about the time we made plans to go fishing, or we went fishing, or went hunting, or get ready to go hunting. We had many things to do, and I couldn't hardly figure it out, but Mama had it figured. She said, yes, we're going to go. So anyway, I played smart. I thought I'd bring her to church, and then I'd go back and get her, because I was a busy fella. Didn't have time for all that. So anyway, you read between the lines. I'd go back and get her, and that kept her happy. So the tires. I needed a tire. Well, at one time I had shaved the tire to rub off the main rub off of it was the lining of the tire that I needed to put in the other tire. In those days they had what they called boots. They were about 7, 8, 12 inches long to put in where you had a split in the tire or something. And it made it do, you know. The tube had to hold up too, though. Well, anyway, they gave me I could get a number 3 tire. Well, it was vulcanized, and it did, that tire that lasted pretty long. It had pretty good rubber on it. But yes, they had boots, and you talk about getting your tires balanced these days. It wasn't too balanced. If you could put the tire on the back with the boot to where it wouldn't travel too bad, but of course 35 miles an hour, you didn't have too much problem of it wobbling. that time, I was working later at the stockyard door, and I found out that while talking about being rationed, the price on calves was set from the ceiling board, I guess they called it in Washington. They had prices set on calves at 17 cents. You couldn't buy it higher than that. That was the top price. That was the ceiling price
Is that per pound?
per pound. And hogs, I don't remember, but in Baton Rouge we got very few hogs. So the way it had to be worked, they put a name in the hat for each one that wanted to buy hogs. The name was put in the hat, and they let one hog into the auction ring, and that was this man's hog, the one that, no matter what it looked like, if he wanted a hog, that was it. I don't remember what the ceiling price was, but anyway, things were changed. Things were different than now. Yes, when the president made his speech, he said everybody had to do their job, men, women, and children. Children in those days, we were farming, and even though you were from 6 to whatever age going to school, that was the starting grade. Going to school was 6 years old. Children going to school was allowed to, they'd go enroll in September, and then they were allowed to, for 2 weeks, to stay at home and help pick cotton or take in the crop. They were allowed for 2 weeks to do that, and then they'd go to school regular.
It was like a vacation?
No.
It wasn't a spring break, huh?
It was a vacation out in the field.
Yeah, working on your tan.
Yeah, and at that time we'd pick cotton for one fellow would hire to pick cotton, so we'd go over there. It paid a penny a pound, but as kids, you don't pick but 10, 12 pounds a day, you know. Talking about getting paid 50 cents a day, that was from sun up to sundown. You could throw the clock away. It was summertime, them long hours, sun up to sundown was the hours for 50 cents a day.
Wow.
Not long after the war started in Japan, not long after, well, I guess maybe a year or so after they built up so many trucks and tanks and you name it, at Alexandria, there was about 5 army camps. There was Fort Polk, Fort Livingston, Fort Claiborne, Fort Beauregard, and they had that big air base. There was about 5 big outfits there. All these camps were, other than the air base, was infantry camps. It's sort of like the Marines. The infantry is just very close to the same as Marines. During the day over here, we out in the country, even out on the smallest dirt roads, you'd see army trucks. From Ellick, they'd go on maneuvers. A lot of them soldiers that was at Ellick was from New York, and you name it, they were them. They wasn't coon asses, that's for sure. But anyway, they brought them down here to get them used to mosquitoes and all that. In the swamps around Crotch Springs and all that. They every day you'd see army trucks. When they passed through Opelousas, the first outfit would put a MP directing traffic. all traffic had to stop for. They couldn't cut through a convoy that was passing by. If there was 50 trucks, they had to wait till them 50 trucks passed by. And so anyway, many soldiers out of Ellick passed through Louisiana, was on maneuvers here, and they were in jeeps, trucks. We didn't see tanks because that was a different outfit. But anyway, day after day, even at night, you hear the humming of trucks on the highway. All trucks had grip tires, and you'd hear them humming on the pave. It was really something to see. And if you looked at the train, every train had guns, tanks, trucks, jeeps going to New Orleans to be unloaded there to go overseas. So yes, everybody had to work, and they did a great job.
Okay, stop right there for a second.